Hi and welcome back to a new video. In this video I'm talking about books, more specifically about the books I've read this year, which are these books. There are 10 books, so let's start with the first book I've read this year and work through the last one, or the one that I'm currently reading. The first book that I've read this year is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, and this book basically is about a girl that moves in with her brother for a short amount of time, and her brother is a pilot, so she meets like a colleague which is also a good friend of her brother, and he's also a pilot. And basically she and him, they're kind of enemies, but they're attracted to each other. Basically she wasn't looking for a relationship, and he did not really believe in love, and like, because we do not know what happened, but as they meet each other, like, we can see like kind of flashbacks. And when I was reading, like, I felt like I wanted to know what happened in the past, why he was like that, and why he didn't let himself like fall in love with her. And let me tell you, this book made me emotional. I'm pretty sure I cried reading this. And yeah, I rated this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I'm pretty sure I would rate it a 4 out of 5 now that I've read other books too, you know. So I do recommend this book. I feel like all of her books, all of the books of Colleen Hoover, are like very easy read, and like I usually go through her books like very fast, which I like, but also don't, because I hate when I finish a book. Anyways, so that was the first book. The second book that I read was this one, and if you read Ugly Love, make sure to read this one, because there are some characters that come into this book too, which are from Ugly Love, and I don't know, I thought that was kind of fun. I read it back to back, like literally within like 3 days. But anyways, this book is basically I'm pretty sure the girl like moves to New York in a day, and then the day before she leaves, she's like in the restaurant with her father, and he's being like very rude to her, and then a guy like sits next to her and pretends to be her boyfriend, and then basically that's how they met. And then they like spent the rest of the day together and like have the best day, and then she leaves the next day obviously, and they decided to meet the same day in a year, which is why it's called November 9th, because it's November 9th when they meet. And then they made it like a tradition to meet every year, and then when they meet they just spend the day together and like tell each other what has happened in the past year. And you know, pretty sure the girl was like very popular, and then she had an accident, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the guy she meets like has to do something with her past, and then she finds out, and it's like a really big thing. Anyways, I forgot that happened, but yeah, anyways, that was that book. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. I probably would rate it 3 out of 5 stars right now, but I do recommend to read this book. If you want to read this, make sure to read this one first, because as I mentioned, characters from this book like appear in this book, like they have to do something with each other. And then I watched This Summer I Turned Pretty, the first season, and I saw this book and I wanted to read the books, so I got this book and read it. And basically, if you don't know what The Summer I Turned Pretty is about, because there is a show on Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure. This book basically is about a girl and her brother and her mother that go to the same beach house every year with this other family, which the moms of the two families are like best friends and know each other since they were kids. The other mom basically has 2 boys, and the girl has always been in love with this one boy, and then it evolves and she kind of maybe catches feeling for the other boy, and it's like this whole thing. Yeah, that's the storyline like explained in like a few sentences. But I really have to say, like, I watched the series, and I mean, I didn't love it, but it was okay. But reading the book, it wasn't really the best book that I've read. I rated it a 2 out of 5. I recommend if you like the storyline and if you are into the series, but I wouldn't read. That's why I didn't read the sequels. The next book I've read was Speak, and I watched the movie like a few years ago and I really liked the movie, and then I decided to read it for school because we had to do a presentation about a book. I had the book at home, I just didn't read it yet, so that was the sign to read it for my book presentation. So I read it. I feel like this book is very similar to the movie. There are a few differences and I feel like the book describes and explains a lot more, which I love because I really like the movie. So yeah, the message in this book is also very important and I like that. Honestly, I just noticed that I'm not really good at explaining things. I didn't explain what this book is about. Basically, this book is about a girl and she starts high school, and the past summer something happened. We don't really know until kind of the end, but we just know that she doesn't really have friends anymore. Her old friends hate her for some reason and she's kind of lonely, and goes through high school. She takes art, and in the art class it's kind of her safe space. And then at the school she has like this room, this abandoned closet, I'm pretty sure, and she goes there whenever she wants. Honestly, I just felt like this book really showed her emotions very well. Like you were able to get into that position and like feel like she felt how she felt, which I think is very like amazing if someone can write like that. So that was this book. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. Let's carry on. The next book I've read is Should I Tell You? And honestly, this was the worst book to get through. It wasn't like the worst book like story wise, it was just, it took me the longest to read. It took me 5 months to read this book which is crazy, but it was also like during my exam phase, so I wasn't able to read as much. But at the start I was kind of confused because there were so many people, like so many different people, and I wasn't sure like the connections between those people and what the story even was about. That was kind of hard for me to grasp. I feel like this book, like when I was halfway through, was when it started to get more interesting, and when I started like knowing the people and knowing like whatever like the story was. But basically it's about 3 people that were living with a foster family, and the foster mom passed away a few years ago, and then it just talks about their life, and it's a girl and 2 boys, and the girl always had like a crush on the one guy, which is, I thought that was kind of weird because they were like in a family. Even though it was a foster family, it was still, I don't know, I just didn't really like the fact that they were in a family together. But anyways, she always liked him, and then in the book like we know that he likes her too, and then at some point the other guy likes her, which I didn't get until now. But anyways, and then that it just tells the story. Basically, what I have to tell you, most of the books that I read are like romance books, so yeah. So yeah, that was that book. I rated it a 3 out of 5 because in the end I really liked it, and I was actually kind of sad it ended, but I just didn't really like the start. It didn't pull me in like the books of Colleen Hoover do. I can't speak anymore, but let's carry on. The next book I read was Normal People. This book, I had very different, like, not intentions, but I thought very different of this book before reading, and then when I finished, because I thought this was a love story, but honestly it isn't. Like, it tells about 2 people, like a girl and a boy, who meet in high school, and the story takes place in Ireland, and he is like the popular guy and she's not so popular, and the guy's mom works for, it's kind of the housemaid of the girl, and that's how they know each other. And he like sometimes comes over to the house because to pick up his mom, and they have like conversations with each other, and then at some point they like have something with each other. But at school he told her like not to talk about it and not to talk him, and like it's kind of this secret fling they have. It continues telling the life story of them, and like they end up at the same college, but they're never in a relationship, and both of them like date other people, but they still are like best friends. That's actually also why it's called Normal People, because it tells the story of 2 normal people who go through their life And that's also why I really like this book, because like the people come over as normal and like and the storyline is like a little more realistic. I rated this book 3 stars out of 5. Actually, now when I think about it, I don't know why I rated only 3 out of 5, but I think that was just because I didn't expect the book to be how it was. The next book I read was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and this book is not a love story. It's basically a memoir of Evelyn Hugo, and important to note, she didn't exist. I was shocked when I found that out. I thought she was a normal person, but she did not exist. It just talks, it's like her memoir, and basically she writes a journalist's company and tells them that she wants to get interviewed by the journalist, and then when she does, she tells her that she wants the journalist to write a book about her life. And yeah, and then she talks about her life, about her 7 husbands, and there are a lot of secrets that are revealed about Evelyn Hugo's life, and it just tells about her glamorous life as a famous actress. I rated it a 4 out of 5. I really recommend to read this. So the next book I've read is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I started reading this, I think, at the start of my exchange year. Like, I took it with me on my exchange year. I never finished though, because I feel like at that point I wasn't really into reading as much, but I read it again. I have watched the movie before, but I read the book again, and the book is basically these many letters from Charlie, and he writes to an unknown friend. I still don't know who he was writing to, but I think it's important in the plot. He just writes the letters telling that person about what has been happening, about his past and like all that, because in his past there has been a few things that happened. He had an aunt and she passed away. We find out something about her later in the book, but there are many like hints about her during the book. And then he had a best friend who killed himself. He's like he doesn't really have friends, and he's depressed. He has PTSD, I'm pretty sure. And then it's the same. He starts high school, but he decides to include himself more in the school, so he goes to a football game, and there he approaches a guy, and then he becomes friends with him and his stepsister. Yeah, he kind of joins their friend group, and he kind of has a crush on the girl, like the stepsister. It just talks about their friendship and their fights and all of that. And then in the end, which I already told you, something comes out about the aunt. I like the book. Sometimes I didn't really like the writing, but you have to see it from the perspective that it's been written from Charlie, and he's a freshman. So basically, like, you know, he has different words and like, yeah. But I just didn't really like that, but it was still fine. I still really liked the book. I rated it a 4 out of 5. Really good book. So then I just read Reminders of Him a few days ago. This book is about a woman. She just got out of prison, and she returns to the old town she was living in, and there she tries to connect with the family who takes care of her daughter, which she had with a guy. And important to know, she got into prison because she got in a car accident, and in the car was her boyfriend, and he died. And basically she got in prison for that. When she got out, she returns to the town where the guy's parents are taking care of her daughter, and she wants to see her daughter because she never got to see her daughter, but the parents are angry at her. And the first night when she returns to the town, she goes to a place which used to be a bookstore where she would go with her boyfriend, and the place got turned into a bar. So she steps in there, and there's the bartender, and he actually owns the bar. It comes out that spoiler, that he was the best friend of her boyfriend. She never met him, she just knew of him, and like when she gets to know his name, she's like, oh, because they had something yeah, it's kind of a love story between them, and in the background she wants to get into touch with her daughter. That's the story. I like the book, although I have to say that the writing style of this book, I don't know. Yeah, I rated this book 3 out of 5 stars. Now let's get to the last book, and the book I'm reading right now. I'm just at the beginning, so I can't really talk about what it's about, but I just know it's a love story. It's a romance book. I also wanted to tell you my TBR list, so this is on it. I'm currently reading it. These books on my TBR are just the books that I have at home that I haven't read yet. I have a lot more books that I want to read, but anyways, so I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. I feel like this is the best season to read it because it's kind of creepy, of what I've heard. And then I have 2 kind of summer books. I have Happy Place by Emily Henry and Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and she also wrote 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so I'm excited to read this book. And then I also have After We Fell, because that's the 3rd book. I read the first 2 really fat, so yeah, let's see how well I get through this book, because the other books I think I read like the last year, so it's been a while since I've read After. Those are the books that I haven't read yet. And yeah, I really hope that you like this video. Maybe you have some books that you want to read now. If you want to see more book videos, I thought about like doing a reading challenge, or just like a read with me, and then I don't know if that's something you want to see, but probably something that I'm gonna film. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to see more videos. If you didn't, just scroll past this video. But anyways, I'll see you next week. Also, don't forget to give this a thumbs up. Anyways, bye.